We're going to take a look at the basic multi-track track controls in this tutorial. To follow along, bring in this multi-track session by going to the Working Files multi-track session subfolder and bringing in 1204 track controls. This will look very familiar. We've used this in the demo that I did in the first movie in this section. Now, what I want to show you is how to deal with certain track controls like these buttons here, and also deal with the heights of tracks and how wide they are, things like that. We're not dealing with bringing files in or doing any real mixing yet. We're still going to work on just how to get this thing set up and how to manipulate things a bit. Then we'll talk about mixing some files together and doing that sort of practical side of a multi-track session. So first of all, these buttons appear. You've encountered them off and on through the various tutorials. Now I'm going to kind of make it more formal. The M button is a mute button. It mutes the tracks. If I click on that, then it mutes that track. And you see it gets kind of grayed out there. It's telling you that you won't hear it. You'll hear all the rest. You won't hear the vocalist here. And that gives you a good opportunity to kind of go, maybe I need to fix one of these guys. I think maybe the organ needs to be a little bit louder. So I'll keep on doing this. And I'm going to scroll down. You can see there's the organ left and the organ right there. But I have those guys going on an output to an organ bus. So I can control the volume actually down in the organ bus here. So I'm going to play it for a while and use the organ bus volume control to kind of bring up the organ a bit. So that gives you an opportunity to just hear the instrumental mix rather than hear the vocalist on top of it. So that's one good use of mute. Solo is the opposite of that. You click on the S button. That solos a track. So I'll solo the vocalist.
And then some more. Well, I know how much you wanted me to stay.
When you solo a track, it gives you an opportunity to, let's say, listen to the effects. So I could switch over to the effects view by clicking on this button and then open up the Studio Reverb and listen to her alone as a soloist and see if I want to adjust the Studio Reverb, for example.
But it just couldn't be that way.
Something like that. So that gives you that opportunity. You don't have to solo only one track, even though it's called solo. You can solo multiple tracks. So it's, I guess, a trio now, right?
Gave me all your love and then some.
Something like that. So you can solo any number of tracks. You can also mute, let's say, all the tracks, or solo all the tracks by using a keyboard shortcut. If you hold down the Shift key, and then on Windows hold down Control, or on Mac hold down Command, and click on one of these two buttons like the M button, that mutes every single track. You'll hear nothing, every single track, just totally blank. You get this readout like something's happening, but you'll hear nothing. So this way you can mute everything and then maybe unmute a couple like this. But when you do this, you're still going to hear nothing. Why is that? Because when you mute everything, you mute the master track as well. Way down here, the master track is muted too, so we'll unmute that, and now we can hear those guys.
Said that's what I wanted.
Something like that. And now if you want to unmute all of them, you need to hover your mouse over one of the muted buttons, hold down Shift plus Control or Command, and then click again, and that unmutes everybody and brings everybody back to normal. Same thing is true for the solo. You can solo everybody by going Control Shift or Command Shift and clicking all of them. It's kind of like, why do you want to solo everybody? But this way you can, again, select some number of tracks by unsoloing some, so all the rest of them are selected. Just kind of the reverse of the process of muting. Now I'm going to go Control Shift or Command Shift on Mac and click on the S, and that unsolos everybody. Same thing is true for the R key. The R key lets you arm a track for recording. So you can arm this track for recording, and you can see that my microphone is now bouncing the VU meter there, which is what you'd hope to see. And you can arm any number of tracks for recording, and if you have an interface that has multiple inputs, then each track can have a separate input. In this case, if I armed a bunch of tracks for recording, it would have just my voice on every single track, kind of redundant. You might notice that when you turn on the R, when you arm a track for recording, this little I button becomes active. This is called the monitor input button. If you turn off recording, it's not active. Turn it back on, it's active. You need to be a little careful with this guy. This allows you to hear any effects that have been applied to that track as you record to the track. So if I click this on now, you get this horrible feedback caused by the Studio Reverb. So you need to route the track away so you can hear the reverb from another track. So I'm not going to go over the I button. Just be aware that you can use this to monitor any kind of reverb or any other effect you've applied to the track as you record to the track. Let me turn off R, and we'll move on from there. I want to talk about how you can expand the view or contract the view here inside the track so you can see more or less here. This is kind of the default heights in this resolution. Now your resolution will probably be different. You'll probably be seeing more tracks than just these three, but this is our view and our resolution. You can zoom in or zoom out by using these buttons down here. If I click on the plus sign, I'm going to zoom in and see more. And you may wonder, why would I want to zoom in? But it gives you much more control over these volume and pan envelopes than if you zoom all the way out. I mean, imagine trying to control them from this view. So if you want to zoom in, that's a good thing. And these buttons here zoom in horizontally. So if you want to zoom in to get a little better view of a waveform, so you can put your current time indicator in a more accurate location, then that's a good thing to do. These little buttons over here zoom in on the in point or the out point. Now right now there is no in point or out point, it's just that current time indicator. If I were to make a selection here, then if I were to click on this left button, it would zoom in on this side. Watch that. There you go. If I clicked on this button, it would zoom in on that side. I click it once more, it'll go in and in and in. It keeps on zooming in, and you can see that it's zooming in by looking up here. If I click this button, it zooms in on the selected area, that little white area there. It'll zoom in so it fills the entire screen. There you go. You can see the white area up there matches the width of the screen. I'll just click inside here to deselect that area. Clicking on this button down here zooms out full on all axes. What it tries to do is it tries to show you as much as it can. Let's say I only had 3 tracks and I'd zoomed out as far as I could, so they were this high. You'd see only these 3 tracks. If I click on that button over here, nothing would happen. It would stay zoomed out like that. But if I were zoomed way in, let's say, something like this, and I clicked on this guy, then it would try to put as many tracks into the view as it could. Right now it's about 12 tracks. If I had 50 tracks here, it would still show about 12 tracks in this resolution. There's some keyboard shortcuts you can use. Right now if I scroll my mouse button, this scrolls this scroll bar up and down. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see it better as I go up and down. If I hold down the control key or command key on a Mac and I scroll my mouse up and down, then that zooms in or out wherever my cursor is. So if I put my cursor over here, it'll want to zoom in on my cursor. Watch for this little white marker that says where my cursor is, relatively speaking. And so it just tries to zoom in on wherever my cursor is or out, depending which way I roll my mouse wheel. If I hold down the Alt key in Windows or the Option key in Mac, then that scrolls the view this way. It expands or contracts the track view that way. So that's just a quick way to do that. And if you want to take a look at an individual track, so you just get a better view of one track rather than all of them at once, you can drag below the track here. You see how it turns into a little parallel line with 2 arrows on it? That says you can pull the track down. You can't pull a track up. You can only pull a track down. So whenever you're going to expand the view of a track, it's always from the bottom of a track. If I drag here, it'll fix this track here. And if I scroll all the way down to the master track, if I want to expand the view of the master track, I can only drag it from the bottom, which sometimes is kind of tough to grab hold of. You can see that I can drag it down, and now I can pull this down to see the master track. So those are the basic track controls here inside a multi-track session.